Welcome to RGBA, colorful tech news and reviews. This is episode 90. My name is Alexandre Valère-Lagacé, and I'm joined by my co-host, Tyler Ménard. All right. Remember last week I said third time's the charm about Gray Key in the follow-up news? Well, you know what? Fourth time. No, I lied. Yeah. Fourth time is also charm. For some reason, it also popped up in the news this week. If you remember, a couple weeks ago, we discussed this little box that allows you to hack iPhones, which are passcode protected. And they work as you plug your phone in that little box. There's like two little lightning cable coming out of that little box, and it does some magic and can take from a few hours to a few weeks to unlock the phone. Apple, instead of maybe understanding what is the flaw that is being exploited, they decided to do this approach differently. So from now on, there's a change in iOS 11.4. So of course, it only works with the future iOS revision. If ever the the passcode has not been entered properly in the last 7 consecutive days, there is no way for you to unlock a device or plug it to iTunes using a cable. So what this means is that law enforcement now have 7 days to unlock a device at most. So if, for example, the device has a super long passcode, and that would be estimated to, let's say, 2 weeks of work, these will never work. Never ever. If you have a simple passcode, which will take, let's say, 24 hours to unlock, and you only have 0.5 days left before that 7 days, you won't have enough time. The phone will change its to restricted mode, it's called, USB restricted mode, and that will prevent forensics or any other hacker or government or whatever to try to unlock the code. So this is a different approach, and it's one that seems to be quite effective if it works, as defined by Elcomsoft, which is a software encryption company that discovered this, and they added a big blog post about how all this works.
I guess I need to change my 4-digit passcode now that Face ID works so well.
Yeah, I think 4 digits is unlocked in under 2 hours.
Oh,
using that Gray Key.
Do you have 4 or 6?
I have 6.
I'll just add 2 zeros at the end.
Yeah, or what people usually say is use the same passcode and then you just repeat the first 2 characters. Or you just double your password to get 8. So it's another way to do it.
I see people that just say my password is 1234 and they just stab the 4 at the end for 2 times.
Yeah, that's another way. It's a bunch of patterns that humans try to tend to easily memorize. All right, so jumping on into the news section, the first news was one that you shared this week with me. It's the Houdinki Johnny Ive interview. I know you read it through. I did not, and I will explain why in a second. This is a featured post by Benjamin Clymer, who interviewed Johnny Ive, and he also goes into details, lots of details, about everything surrounding his meetup, let's say, with Johnny Ive. So you sent that to me, and I said, okay, it's interesting. I'm seeing that Houdinki now has a physical magazine, so that's interesting in 2018. It's very rare that online companies go to the physical world. So, and I started to read this article and read. I think I was about, there's not even a scroll bar on that page. Okay, there's a scroll bar.
It's weird.
It's white. Okay. So I think I got like about halfway through and I said, okay, like there is still no Johnny Ive in the picture. The guy spends half his article explaining how everything is laid out, how many inches the chairs are against the walls, not 4, not 6, exactly 5 inches. It's like, okay, I would have summarized the whole first half of this article into like 5 sentences, and that would be enough. The rest is just too much. And at this point, I said, oh, F that. I'm going to skip that. I don't think I'm going to get much out of this article anyways. So I skipped. Please tell us, what did I miss?
Yeah, you're right. He started, the article starts off when he's in New York, because he's from New York and he flies all the way to San Francisco to meet Johnny Ive. So he goes to I'm at the airport and then I'm eating at this unbranded sandwich place and it goes on. Have you read what people think and how people are interpreting this article also?
I listened to ATP this week, so they had very colorful feelings about this article.
Yeah.
Especially Marco Arment, who used an adjective, which I will not name here, which you have to go listen to their show. And I did not reach that point in the article. So now I'm scrolling past where I stopped, and I realized that
there's a Q&A,
two more, it's a Q&A, but two more paragraphs later. But it's not rated on my phone. It seemed to be never ending, so I stopped.
Yeah. So the article is interesting. He asks watch questions. I know people are mad that people are mad that this is what they think of watch people. They're super snobby and all that. I don't know. I didn't mind reading it. I found it read easy. It was easy to read. I know what's his name? Ben Clymer.
Yeah, Benjamin Clymer.
I've heard him on a couple of other podcasts because I have this car podcast that talks about watches sometimes and whatever. So he's been on that show. It's his whole story, and the whole story of Hodinkee is very interesting. He started up from nothing. He was in accounting, and he wrote this when he had free time. So it's pretty cool story from a watch blog. You'd think, who reads a watch blog? But it's huge right now, and he even got an interview with Johnny Ive. So, and this, I get the whole thing that it's supposed to be cringeworthy, but the questions were good. I found you can just skip it if you want. Don't read the whole beginning. And he starts off with the questions he asked to Johnny Ive. He also adds his thoughts. It's kind of weird. Just stick with the Q&A and it'd be good.
Yeah, well, I was scrolling past all of that text. I realized that there's also prototypes of the Apple Watch clasp.
Yep.
That goes onto the fluorescemer bands from 1986 version designed by Mark Newson, and then 2006, and then 2014. So the evolution of that exact same idea that they had 30 years ago, they still have it and still use it today, in a way that is eerily similar to what it was before.
And Mark Newsom is his best friend.
To Benjamin or to Johnny?
Johnny.
Yeah. Yeah, he's the one who designed a hourglass a couple of months ago that cost a pretty penny, and because each and every single little beads was custom made and custom sized. So, all right. So yeah, I'm guessing there's interesting talk in there if your watch or design, but I don't think we're gonna get anything super juicy in terms of technology, or
even a lot of the answers are super Johnny Ive. You don't really understand what he means, and he's in his white box there. It's white box speech.
Yeah. All right. So the other news this week that made the rounds is that Apple is planning to sell video subscription through the TV app. It's basically a rumor, but since it's Mark Gurman, and sometimes there's something to it. Right now, if you're in the States mostly, because everywhere else in the world it doesn't really work, you can search from the TV app inside other apps you have installed. Let's say you're paying for Hulu or other, I don't even know who is participating in that program, but let's take a random channel like CBS, for example. If you have the CBS app installed and you search for shows into the TV app, you would get results from CBS, and you can click and start them from the TV app directly. But if you want to purchase, let's say you have the app installed, but you don't have an account, and you would like to buy one or a subscription or whatever, you need to click that CBS app, do the registration process, and then log in your account, and then go back to the TV app to have everything at the same place. But what Apple is probably thinking, maybe going to try eventually, is to actually sell the subscription or the whatever accounts or whatever directly inside the TV apps. So you're in the TV app, you look for content, you will probably be served results on apps you don't own or accounts you don't have, so that it's going to incite you to open an account or subscribe to a subscription. So this way, it's all at the same place. You don't need to bounce back and forth. It's going to be much easier and much streamlined. Like step 1, step 2, step 3, you're done. Instead of having like 5 or 6 or 7 steps and go back here, then go back here, then try again your search. So it's going to be all simpler. And I think that's going to install itself into the same mindset that we have for the future Apple TV service. So instead of having maybe an iTunes connection or a music account, there might be a TV account which you can buy separately, and you're most probably going to be able to buy it directly from the TV app. So maybe it's a way for Apple to include partners into that same feature set, instead of having its own thing that's going to be pushed everywhere, and everybody else who are now partners will feel neglected and they will not be able to join in on this easy access. That's my 2 cents. I'm guessing that this is just a matter to satisfy partners and at the same time pave the way to its very own subscription, which will be one of many you can have on your Apple TV.
Yeah, we still don't have Hulu in Canada. I don't think we're ever going to get it, really.
Yeah, well, it's complicated now because there's a bunch of acquisition in the works in the States with Hulu and Fox, and I think it was Sky or whatever. I don't know the details, but I don't follow that market purchases. But there's a bunch of companies buying other companies, and then Disney and something and whatever. So it's complicated. So it's still nice to see that we're going to have something easier and more tangible to manage a subscription. So hopefully disabling a subscription or canceling a subscription will be as easy as getting one.
As 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, hopefully not 1, 2, then call Apple or then go to this page and then jump to iTunes and go to your settings.
Yeah.
Which would be awful. All right, so if you were one of the people who are waiting for a battery replacement for one of your iPhones, well, Apple recently confirmed that service inventory of all iPhone replacement batteries is now available without delay. So no more going to the Apple Store, doing the test with the Genius and confirming that you need a battery replacement, and then having to wait 2, 3, 4 weeks before they get the batteries, and then come back for an appointment, have them fix your phone, and come back the next day. So now they should have battery stock everywhere in enough quantities to warrant everybody who's waiting for a repair. And if you go in the store right now, that was on, right now for the internal Apple Store and for the network of authorized Apple service providers, it will be on 27th. So this is pretty interesting. So if you go to the Apple Store right now with a defective battery, they are stock of the batteries in the store, and they can do the replacement probably the next day or the following day, maybe if they have too many to do, but it should be done quite easily.
When I did the battery replacement for my girlfriend's phone, they said like 2 to 3 weeks in the form when I fill it out online, and they contacted me by email, I think a week later. So it was already getting a lot better.
Yeah, cool.
And you don't have to go into the store for the first step there. So they do like diagnostics of your battery. You can just ask for a new one, and it costs $29.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, finally Apple was able to produce enough batteries to get all the stores in all the world.
Because sometimes just getting a Apple Genius Bar appointment takes like a week or 2.
Yeah, that's the other part of the problem is first the battery thing was putting a lot of strain on the network of stores, but then it's also the Genius, which is being harder and harder to get an appointment in a relative short time. I remember a couple of years ago, if you wanted an appointment in the same afternoon, you could just go online, set your choose one of the little blocks there, and you were set to the same day. But now if you do the same thing, oftentimes if you have like a busy schedule, it's hard to find something in the same week to go to. Usually what I have to do is I have to look at the following week, and then maybe on the 6th day it matches my schedule. So it's a lot harder nowadays.
I remember you used to walk in and ask, I want to see the genius or something. And it said, do you have do you have like an appointment? You say no. You'd walk away for 2 minutes, book an appointment, come back, say, I have an appointment at like, I have an appointment now with the genius. So because I wanted to force people to like actually book appointments. There's no more walk-ins or whatever.
Yeah, that's going to be hard because if you go walk in and it's not something crucial or it takes a lot of time, you're going to be there for like 4 hours. All right. So there was a news that popped up this week directly from Apple, which was quite interesting. I did not know Apple was investing itself so much into research and development of the famous product that they do use everywhere, the aluminum. They have been using the aluminum the way that it was made since the 1860s. It's basically taking the bauxite mineral and then applying some electricity to it and some other chemical reaction, and the outcome of that is aluminum, but it's also ton and ton of greenhouse gas emissions. So the whole manufacturing of this metal is very hard on the planet, and given that Apple is operating such a big scale, it's a big problem. So they basically invested 144 millions with the governments of Canada and Quebec, and also Alcoa and Rio Tinto, which are, well, Rio Tinto was before it was Alcan, which was acquired by the Brazilian company. But these two are normally, they cover the whole market in Quebec, and they shared all of the production of aluminum for probably most of North America. And what this do is that Alcoa is actually the company who invented the aluminum process in the 1800s. And now they're working together to find a way to, instead of using the same chemical reaction, they're using something which is oxygen based, and the outcome of this is not CO2 or other greenhouse gases. It's actually oxygen which will be released. So it will be much, much, much better for the environment, and also will probably help also Apple offset its credit that it's actively working towards by offsetting every consumption that they do of their processes and their offices to be green, fully green, for some of the part of their business that they cannot get these for some of their part of their business where they cannot just become green all of a sudden. They have to buy back credits to be the equivalent. And I'm guessing that in their little spreadsheet that this process is the one that costs the most in terms of environmental effects. So this is a good thing for everyone. It's also a good thing for us in Quebec. We have investments in the province to develop a new process, which will be patented and probably shared only between Alcoa and Rio Tinto and Apple. Alcoa is actually the one who invented the process, but since they're a smaller company, they needed to have a partner to mass produce aluminum this way. So that's why they partnered with Rio Tinto, and Apple is most probably investing money in there to create new plants and stuff to allow itself to have maybe a reserved amount of that production. So as they normally do with most of their features and parts and partners. So yeah, they're planning to use that new aluminum at the beginning of 2024. So that's going to be interesting to see in the following 6 years.
I think we have a lot of aluminum plants here because is it aluminum or aluminium? Aluminum is Brit. We say aluminum.
I don't know. There's too many meme with Johnny Ives that says aluminum that I'm just saying aluminum right now just because that's what I think of when I think about aluminum.
Doesn't he say aluminium or whatever? No.
Oh, yeah, one or the other.
So. We have a lot of plants here in Quebec because electricity is cheap, right? That's why we're like the aluminum people.
But not just that, because we invented aluminum.
Okay.
So Alcoa is the one who invented that in the 1800s.
Okay.
So that's why we were like the first one to have that thing. And then I'm guessing that there was also Alcan. I think there's a story between Alcoa and Alcan's founders, which were basically either researchers working closer or if they were actually partner and they wanted to market this thing differently and they split and they use the same recipe but did their thing differently. But yeah, there's a big background story between these two founders, and that's why we have the patents, we have the process, and we were able to build a bunch of plants in Quebec to do the aluminum for everyone. And that's why so when you think aluminum, you think Quebec because that's part of our history.
Okay. I thought it was because our electricity is cheap. Because they're always set right next to like big hydro dams.
Yeah, that probably also helps having direct access to the lot of energy like that. So, but it doesn't mean that it would be impossible to do everywhere else. There's probably aluminum being produced everywhere on the planet also, but it's just that since we were here first, we had a little advance doing plants and manufacturing that.
A little head start.
Yeah, head start. All right. I don't know if you probably remember all of the Austin Man articles for the iPhone cameras and the such. We had one for the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus. He was in the gorilla with the jungle. We also had one for the iPhone 8.
Yeah, I remember that.
So, yeah, that's pretty interesting. But now I'm thinking, okay, we haven't heard from the guy for a while. And all of a sudden this pops up, his iMac Pro and Hasselblad H6D photo review. So he went to Antarctica to do a photo and video documentary, I'm guessing, or just for fun. And he recounts his first Mac, which is the iMac, which is the 20-year anniversary of the iMac this week. And then after that, he explained all of his journey and explains what the gear he uses. And he also uses a glyph, which is cool. He brought in also a Sony camera and the Hasselblad H6D with 3 lenses, a 24mm, a 100mm, and a 300mm with a 1.7x multiplier. So he would be able to zoom in into those penguins quite extensively. So that's the first part. And then there's also the digital workflow part where he has a 15-inch MacBook Pro. He has an iPad, and also, like, I haven't read the whole thing like word by word, but there's a point where he explains how he's packing the iMac Pro. So I'm guessing he brought the iMac Pro with him on the boat. I don't know if you read the article.
No, it's the first time I hear this one.
Okay. Anyways, so the whole point of this article is to showcase the cameras and what kind of processing he needs to do. There's one example where he took a photo of a glacier and some cliffs and penguins, and the total size, this was a super panoramic, comprised of 14 images of 100 megapixels each. So the whole file was 11 gigs. So that's pretty intense. And working on the MacBook Pro would be doable, but the thing would spin up and had problems processing all of that because that's at 300 dpi. So he can even printed it at about 13 feet wide. So it's a huge image. But of course, the iMac Pro had no trouble plowing through and had no problem at all to just process it. He also showcases the Hasselblad cameras and the way that you have amazing raw information in that photos and all the dynamic range going from the very, very exposed sections like skies or light and the very dark section like the back of penguins, which is totally black, and you can see the difference there. The dynamic range is amazing. So that's pretty crazy. There's also a part about, like I said, his workflow, the way he backups his drive and everything. And then you have the whole Antarctica itself, because it's like a 6-stop traveling guide. So you have 6 stops before you actually get to Antarctica. And then he, of course, took amazing photos. It's pretty crazy what types of photo he can do with the Hasselblad H6D. And then, of course, he does a bit of performance comparison. So, example, like exporting 20 raw images takes almost 200 seconds on a MacBook Pro and only 60 seconds on an iMac Pro. So that's the kind of thing that you can do. The biggest number he has is exporting 1400 Canon 5DS raw images from his friend who was with him with a 2013 iMac. It took about 4 hours. And with the iMac Pro, it took 49 minutes. So, and of course, there's a little block of text saying why does speed matter, and then he goes into a little mathematics to explain if you save, let's say, 4 minutes here, it's 4 minutes per day times a year. That tells you how many hours per year you save and why it matters. So that's pretty interesting. There's also a bunch of pros and cons and wish lists, so I will let you read the article to have the details, but it's pretty interesting.
His pictures are really nice.
Yeah, he's a great photographer.
I like how his MacBook Pro is like super, super used.
Yeah, yeah, he's
The keys are like all white.
Yeah, he's traveling a lot, so that thing for sure came with him, like in Africa and everywhere. So it's pretty messed up.
And also, he could have cleaned the screen before taking pictures.
Yeah, well, he could have, but they rarely do.
And the Hasselblads, is that like a video camera, or that's a picture camera?
It's a photo camera. Yeah, I don't think they do video.
It looks weird. I just find they look so weird, those cameras.
Yeah, because they're like once you have enough casing around the medium format sensor, like that gives you a lot of leeway into places to put the rest of the electronics. But you don't want to make a camera that's like 2 feet wide to keep the same ratio, let's say, of height, width, and depth from other cameras. So that's why they are so like a lot deeper than most cameras, and not so wide. So they feel like video cameras of the 90s, but they're actually just a photo camera. Because one picture is 218 megs, I think. So it's quite large. So for one photo, if you start to do, like he said, a super panoramic, where you take snapshots side by side and then do like a grid, that you can easily go like he does in the 11 gigs size. But just the whole value of his kit, like the Hasselblad itself is what, 30K, and then each lens is like 7K or something, and he has 3 lenses, one of which is super zoom, which is maybe even more expensive. So he probably had over 50 to 60K just for the Hasselblad gear, then the Sony camera, and then the iPhone. So like total, and the iMac Pro. So total, he maybe had like 100K with him. That's a lot of money for photo exploration.
From Apple products to Zelda games, and from aliens to zombies,
we are Double Density. Tech tales and paranormal primers with your hosts, Brian and Angelo.
New episodes every Wednesday. DoubleDensity.net.
All right, so moving on to rumor corners. I selected only 2 rumors this week. There's way more, but most of them are like crappy news. So this one is pretty interesting, that the new iPhone 10 from next year will have a triple lens camera system. So this comes from Taipei News. So once again, it's a security analyst, so take this with a grain of salt. But given that the Huawei P20 Pro already has a 3-lens camera system with made in partnership with Leica, I'm guessing that it's just normal that the next iPhone will have 3 cameras, then 4, then 5, then 6. So, don't you think?
But at the same time, like one of the best cameras right now is the Google Pixel, and it only has a single lens.
Yeah, but Google does it differently. Instead of having 2 cameras and using the information the sensor has with 2 different glass elements, it only does everything using AI. So at first, it's going to be crappier. But after, let's say, a couple dozen million of photos, then that AI learns quite well and is able to process the images to a degree that seems to be as good as a dual lens system. So it's a totally different approach, which has its pros and cons, but in the end could be as good or even better. Because like you said, right now, I think that after 6 months, I think it's been out for 6 months, the Pixel 2, the very first reviews we had, they had some issues with like airs and ears around portrait modes. But now it's like perfect, and you cannot tell if a photo has been taken with a dual lens system or just a Pixel phone. So I'm guessing that if they continue this way, or even better, if next year the Pixel 3 has 2 cameras, which will be normal for us, and that also leverages AI, you can do probably stuff that's even better than the 3-lens system. So we'll have to see where that goes. But it's interesting to see that we have different manufacturers taking different approaches. I saw a few videos on the Huawei P20 Pro phone, and most of the reviews say that the camera is great. That if you take the camera system as itself, it's great. But the problem is that processing that comes afterward is not as good as you have like on an iPhone or a Pixel phone. So I'm guessing that the Huawei camera is great because it's been made in partnership with Leica. So the glass element and everything, the physical part is great, but they are still lacking into the side of post-processing, which is the kind of thing that, as we explained when we discussed the Hasselblad factory a couple episodes ago, you can take, let's say, a crazy number like 2 weeks of fine-tuning and you'll get a nice picture. If you take like 2 months of fine-tuning, you get maybe an iPhone or a Google level kind of picture. But if you take 5 years of fine-tuning, then you get the Hasselblad quality of image. So that's always where companies have to choose how much time they put into the effort of that system. And the Hasselblad is what it is because they take an amazing amount of time to very fine-tune this. Because remember that the Hasselblad sensor is also used in the Fuji cameras. So the exact same sensor, so the same physical part, but the result is way different. The Fuji medium cameras are great, but they're really not as good as the Hasselblad. But they both use the same sensor, so how can that be? And that's just the time they put and the effort they put into fine-tuning the settings. So I would like to see the Huawei cameras inside either a Pixel phone or an iPhone. That would be amazing. All right, and moving on to the last rumor I have this week, the iPhone 10 Plus from next year is rumored to be the iPhone 8 Plus size. And finally, you will be getting your Face ID support on horizontal side and not just vertical side. So that's going to be interesting to see. I'm not sure about a iPhone 10 size like an iPhone 8 Plus because that thing is going to be so long. You just think about the size in your hand of a Plus phone, and then you increase its length by like 25%. That's going to be crazy.
Yeah, it's going to be freakishly tall.
Yeah. I'm not even sure that's going to be worth it. At this point, it gets so big that it's almost like having like a rod in your pockets. No, but seriously, it's going to be so long but so thin. I don't know. It's going to be very weird. So I think the sweet spot will be between the two sizes. So not the current iPhone 10, but maybe just a little bit bigger, but not as big as the Plus size. Like in between, I think that would be the ideal size. So a bit larger, so you can have the bigger screen estate, but not too much that it feels like you have like a baseball bat in your left pocket.
I'd even take like a bit smaller than this.
Than the existing one?
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yep. I like the iPhone 7 size. It was okay. iPhone 6 there. This one's a bit bigger. It's just like a little bit more awkward.
But if you go smaller like that, you'll also get something that's going to be a lot narrower. So how would that feel in your hand? So you're going to go back to a kind of iPhone 5-ish size, but longer?
No, I mean just like the physical size of the iPhone 6. Full screen.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, the ratio is weird. That's what breaks everything here. Because we could get, like you said, like an iPhone 6 or 7 generation size, like a box size, that's the same exact physical size, but fill the screen around everywhere. And that would be great in hand because that's the ratio that we were used to for a long time. But now the iPhone 10 is taller, so that kind of breaks the ratio that we are used to. So now if you want to go bigger, you go to such a weird size that it doesn't really work for me. Yeah, it's weird.
I see a lot of pluses and they still look super weird in other people's hands, especially with this super big like bezels on top and bottom.
Yeah, you are messed up with all the bezels.
I know. It's really bad. It's not that bad with a white phone, like a white front-facing phone, but when it's in a black one, I'm like, why'd you tape up your phone?
Yeah. What I find interesting is when I find people in the metro on their phone, I try to look at the screen first and try to guess if it's a 10 or an 8 or 7 generation just by the screen colors and by the brightness and the look on the screen. Because I'm always on an angle because I'm not directly on top of them. So I can see that just by looking at the screen, I can usually guess, okay, that's going to be an X. So now I look around to see the borders and yeah, it's an X. But that's the fun part. Like the screen is so impressive that it really makes a huge difference. And you're pretty used to it, so you probably don't even see it anymore. But just in a let's say in a subway setting, you look at two different devices and you can tell right away without being a nerd or anything that the one screen is brighter, nicer, better color than the other one. And why is that? Because it's an iPhone 10 and not an iPhone 8.
That's like my favorite part of public transportation is like looking how people uses their phone.
Yeah, it's a pretty fun game.
Like, what apps do you have? How do you have your home screen set up?
Yeah, if you can be close enough to see all the details, yes. But what I'm trying to do is when I'm even further away, like let's say I'm like 4 or 5 people away from that person, and I can just peek to a screen and I can see that is that a 10 or not, and that's interesting just by itself. But yeah, how they use their apps and what do they do? Do they close everything every time they open Facebook, close Facebook, force quit Facebook, and so that's also interesting.
And then you can try to distinguish what phone he has by, does he have like headphones plugged in? So it means he has an iPhone 6S at the latest. And then, he has a lightning thing, but sometimes they throw you a curveball and they have the lightning headphones, but it's a 6 or 6S. I don't know why. Yeah. I always want to ask those people like, why'd you use the lightning port to plug in your headphones? Especially when you're using the little adapter.
Yeah, well, they just didn't want to buy a $219 pair of AirPods, I guess.
No. What do you mean? You've never seen you in the metro with people that using like the adapter,
No.
but they have like 6 or 6S phones
Well, I never realized. I didn't know why you would do that, so my brain never computed that. But it would make sense only if your 3.5 mil was broken.
Check. You'll see a lot of people do it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So they have like a 6 or 6S, and they actually purchased an adapter and separately, and they use that for their headphones.
Maybe it's for like
weird.
the status, so they want to fake people and saying they have like a 7 or 8.
Yeah, okay, maybe.
No, I know
don't
a
think
girl at work does it because her headphone jack is broken. But I've been meaning to like ask her, like, pass me your phone and I'll try to take out the lint from the 3.5, but I'm not at that point in my relationship with that colleague yet to be able to do like, look, I'm a super nerd.
Yeah, one of my colleagues had that problem with his lightning port. He wasn't able to charge anymore. We would plug it in, tried a bunch of cables, even bought a brand new Apple branded lightning cable, and still wasn't charging. And what I told him is, look into your port, try to get like a
Flashlight?
not a flashlight, but just like a
Paperclip?
Paperclip, yeah, or even the SIM card little tool that comes with your phone,
Yep.
and just scratch the at the bottom of the port, because oftentimes when you plug in your cable, you squish the lint and everything, and that makes a little hard material in the back. And if you can just scrape this off, then you usually are able to use the port again. And he did that, and it worked perfectly. So he had a case of compressed lint into his port. So
I had that problem once with my 3.5 with iPhone 6 or something, and it was just a bunch of lint that was stuck in the bottom, so it wouldn't make the contact right.
yeah, me is for the speakers and the microphones. Started to have problems hearing people on the phone, even though the volume was at maximum. But since I'm not doing so many calls that often, I figured it was maybe like a bad connection or a bad network, or maybe the other person on the other end had a bad mic placement if they were using, let's say, a headset or something. But then after maybe a couple of months, I'm like, okay, it's been like 5 or 6 calls I'm getting, and I have trouble hearing all of them. So there must be something different. So I use, like you suggested, like toothbrush.
Yeah, electric
that's
toothbrush.
dry. Yeah, and just pass it around the grills, both the phone, the microphones, and the speakers. And the color actually changed. It came back from black to being gray.
It's crazy.
So yeah, that's how you know that there was something stuck in there. And then even just watching YouTube videos, the volume increased dramatically. So that's how you know that your grills are dirty. And I should probably do it
grills
again
are dirty.
soon.
Clean your grills.
Exactly.
They get full of gunk.
Yeah, because it's a big
Grill.
it's a big catch everything.
Yeah.
So it can catch dust, can catch lint, can catch everything. And if you have greasy hands, oftentimes if you manipulate your phone and let's say you scrape the grills on your palm, then a little bit of that
Grease and
hand
oil gets into like
yeah.
the dust, and it makes like this grimy thing that dries up, and
Yeah, everything gets mashed together, and that makes a little material
Glue.
that is kind of gluish or like flexible enough to just stay there, but sticky enough to hang on, and that's what you have to remove. So yeah, before thinking of replacing a speaker part or a microphone part, or if people have trouble hearing you, just take a electric toothbrush that's dry and running around all of the little holes around your iPhone, and you'll see a huge difference. So that's our PSA for today.
I'm trying to look at people that are using the adapter on a Lightning to 3.5 that actually have the 3.5. You'll see a lot of people do it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I have to notice that for sure. All right, that's it for episode number 90. You can find us on the internet at RGBAfm/90. There you'll find all of the show notes and the links of whatever we discussed today. And you can find us on Twitter at _RGBAfm. And you can find me personally on Twitter at VALLIERES. That's Valier.
I'm Tyler Menard, TYLERMENARD.
Have a nice week.
Have a nice week.